The ministry of the word today is taken from Mark 16, 1st through 8th verses. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and Salome bought spices so they might go up and anoint him. And very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. They had been saying to one another, "Who will roll away the stone from us from the entrance of the tomb?" When they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had already been rolled back. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. But he said to them, "Do not be alarmed. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has been raised. He is not here. Look, there is the place they laid him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter that he's going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you." So they went out and fled from the tomb, for terror and amazement had seized them, and they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. And all that had been commanded them, they told briefly to those around Peter. And afterward, Jesus himself sent out through them from east to west the sacred and imperishable proclamation of eternal salvation. Now, after he rose early on the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, from whom he had cast out 7 demons. She went out and told those who had been with him while they were mourning and weeping. But when they heard that he was alive and had been seen by her, they would not believe it. After this, he appeared in another form to 2 of them as they were walking into the country. And they went back and told the rest, but they did not believe them. Later, he appeared to the 11 themselves as they were sitting at the table, and he upbraided them for their lack of faith and stubbornness, because they had not believed those who saw him after he had risen. And he said to them, "Go into all the world and proclaim the good news to the whole creation." May God add a blessing to the reading and the hearing of his word.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, choir, and our guest musicians, for all you have blessed us with so far today. Enough already. Enough already, Mark. Not me. Enough already with the endings. The endings to Mark's gospel. In the TV and movie business, there is a thing known as alternative endings. Alternative endings are ones which are written and then either discarded or written and then filmed along with the original ending. And then a decision is made as to which ending to keep. And if it's the original ending, well, the alternative endings are discarded, or as is much more often the case now in the movie and TV business, they are kept and then offered to consumers as an additional revenue stream. Well, long before alternative endings were a thing in the movie and TV business, they were a thing for Mark's gospel. Now, technically, of course, Mark's gospel is not a movie script. Okay. But it has often been described by scholars as being very much like one. Like a movie script, in that it is by far the shortest of the 4 gospels. It is by far the most sparse in terms of details. And like a movie script, it just gets right into the action. Okay, there's no birth stories, no youth stories in Mark's gospel, it just starts with Jesus' baptism, his temptation, and the beginning of his ministry. And it just goes from there. The word immediately is used constantly. It's just a way to keep the action moving. Right up to this, the Easter scene of Mark's movie script. The scene begins early on a Sunday morning. 3 women. Mary Magdalene. Magdalene, not her last name, by the way, just an indication that she is from the ancient Jewish city of Magdala. Mary Magdalene, another woman named Mary, who we are told is the mother of James. What James? Don't know. Some scholars think it's James the Apostle. Others suggest that it may have been James, who is believed to have been the brother of Jesus and would eventually become a leader in the early Christian community in Jerusalem after Jesus' death. Not sure which one. They are joined by a woman named Salome, who is neither mentioned before nor after this. Those 3 women are on a mission on that early Sunday morning. They are bringing spices in order to go to the tomb that Jesus has been in since that Friday to apply those spices, an ancient form of embalming. But they are so focused on their mission that they have forgotten one small detail. Well, really one rather large detail. Somewhere along the way, one of the women stops, turns and says to the others, ladies, we forgot about the rock. We forgot about the large stone that is in front of the tomb that Jesus' body is in. Or in the Greek that Mark's movie script is originally written in, the boulder. Okay? See, in that time and place, it was very common for tombs to really be caves dug out of the sides of mountains or hills and then sealed with a large, heavy boulder. They forgot about the boulder. But they are determined, focused women. They'll figure out a way. Then comes the first twist in the Easter scene of Mark's movie script. The good news is that the women don't have to figure out a way. When they arrive at Jesus' tomb, the boulder has already been rolled away from the entrance. The bad news is that the boulder has already been rolled away from the entrance. They're freaked out a little bit by that, understandably. But again, they are focused, determined women, and they have a job to do, and they are going to do it. So they keep on keeping on right into Jesus' tomb. And then comes the second twist of the Easter scene of Mark's movie script. The women go into the tomb expecting to find someone. And they do. Just not who they expected. They expected to find the body of Jesus. But instead, in the tomb is, as Mark's movie script puts it, a young guy dressed in a white robe. And then Mark's movie script tells us that the women were alarmed. Alarmed. Alarmed is often defined as filled with apprehension or unexpectedly surprised. So I want you to do me a favor. When you go home today, whenever that is, when you go into your house, if you find a young guy dressed in a white robe in your kitchen, I want you to call me or text me or email me and tell me if you were alarmed. But of course, the young guy in the white robe is not meant to alarm the women. The audience for Mark's movie script would have understood that the young guy in the white robe is a symbol, a common biblical symbol for a divine messenger. Divine messenger. And the young guy in the white robe's message to the three women is, not here. Jesus, not here. God raised him. So, I need you to do me a solid and head on back and tell the guys, tell the disciples and Peter, Jesus not here, but he's going to meet y'all over in Galilee, and you'll be reunited there. Nice touch on the part of the writer of Mark's movie script. Because, see, he begins the movie script in Galilee, and now has Jesus being reunited with his closest followers, the same followers that the last time we saw them had abandoned, deserted Jesus in his time of greatest need. Mark's way of saying through the Easter event that nothing can separate us from the love of God in and through Jesus and from a relationship with God if we choose it. And then, well, Mark's movie script throws in one last twist. The women do not go off to tell the guys about everything. Instead, we are told that they run away as fast as they can, and they don't say anything to anyone about any of it. And that is how Mark's movie script ends. Well, sort of. The original ending of Mark's movie script is actually a Greek word that essentially the closest translation in English is something along the lines of and, comma, or to be continued, ... And for the writer of Mark's movie script, that was enough. But before long, it wasn't enough for others in the Christian community. Cue the alternative endings. Sometime in the 2nd century, someone or someones in the Christian community decided that the original ending of that movie script was not enough. Not enough. And so they came up with what scholars refer to as the longer ending of Mark. See, I threw in a little curve today, a little twist of my own. Okay? Kathy said she was reading chapter 16, verses 1 through 8, and she did. That's this page. But if you turn it over, now we get the alternative ending, what's called the longer ending of Mark. It's the part on your page that starts with, now after he rose early on the first day of the week. In the longer ending, that first alternative ending to Mark's movie script, we get Jesus appearing to Mary Magdalene. Then Jesus appearing to 2 disciples as they take a walk in the country. Then Jesus commissioning the disciples. And then finally Jesus ascending into heaven. All scenes taken from the other 3 Gospels. The other 3 Gospels, which by the time the longer ending of Mark was written, had been around for a while. would have been well known. The writers of that alternative ending looked at that and said, now that's enough. That's enough. But then, sometime in the 4th century, another someone or someones in the Christian community looked at those two endings, said, well, the original ending is not enough. And that alternative ending, though, that's far more than enough. So they came up with what scholars refer to as the shorter ending of Mark. That's the first paragraph on the top of that second page. That's the part that says, and all that had been commanded them, they told briefly to those around Peter, and afterward Jesus himself sent out through them from east to west the sacred and imperishable proclamation of eternal salvation. The writers of that alternative ending looked at that one and said, now that's enough. And the church, in the end, as is so often the case with the biblical literature is full of examples where the same story appears in different books or in the same book but told in different ways. In the end, the church decided, let's just keep all the alternative endings and let whoever is translating the Bible decide which one or ones, any or all, that they want to keep. Head hurt? Enough with the endings already. But to be fair, our Christian spiritual ancestors were only trying to do what we try to do. What we try to do as Christians in our time. Come to some understanding of what happened. Discern for ourselves what Easter means. What it means, of course, in terms of what happened, attempting to decide for ourselves what exactly happened, what Easter is, what Jesus' resurrection was, what resurrection is, because the truth is, the Gospels, the rest of the New Testament, and theologians for 2,000 years have not come to a single, unified, definitive, accepted understanding of what happened. Of what happened that first Easter. And as I tend to say just about every Easter Sunday, I'm not going to stand here and pretend to tell you that I do. Because I don't. Which is why I wonder if maybe the original ending of Mark's movie script didn't have it right all along. By ending it with that and comma or to be continued ... The original writer of Mark's movie script leaves it to us. Leaves it to us to determine what Easter means. What it means, certainly, in terms of discerning what happened for ourselves, what will be enough for us in terms of deciding what happened. But I think more importantly, what it means in terms of what we will make it mean. What will we make Easter mean for our lives, for our communities, for our society, for our nation, for this world? what will we make it mean? What will we make knowing that the power of God's love and God's ways of compassion and mercy and forgiveness and justice as accountability in conversation with reconciliation and community? What will knowing that those ways were able to overcome the worst that humanity and the world had to offer, represented in the crucifixion of Jesus? What will we make knowing that mean? What will we make it mean in this time? In this time, which maybe to varying degrees, a time which is still, in many ways, like the time of Jesus and his closest followers. What will we make Easter mean in terms of what we will say enough to? What understanding of Easter will be enough for us, and because of it, what will we be willing to say no, to say enough to? Will Easter be enough to lead us to say enough to the fact that in this time, far too many people are discriminated against, persecuted, and have their basic human rights denied because they are seen as being too different, too odd, too threatening to the powers that be, the same way that Rome saw Jesus and his followers and the early Christian community? Will Easter be enough for us to say enough in this time to the fact that just like in the time of Rome, in the time of Jesus, more and more is spent on means of violence and less on protecting the most vulnerable? Will Easter be enough for us to say enough to the fact that in this time, just like in Jesus' time, acts of cruelty and malice and malevolence are carried out and claimed to be justified, or even claimed to be in keeping with the ways of God, the same way that Rome carried out acts of malice and malevolence and cruelty and claimed that they were justified and even their divine right in Jesus' time. The original ending to Mark's movie script asks us, implores us, demands from us to decide what is enough, to decide what we will say enough to in this time. Whether we will say that the ways of God, those ways of love and kindness and compassion and mercy and justice are enough, and say enough to all of the ways of the world and those who try to say differently. The question of Easter is what ending to the movie we will choose. Will we choose to say enough enough of the endings that the world and the powers that be so often try to write, and instead choose the ending that God wants written. Amen.